It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. We are live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. Also live on YouTube, Facebook, having the crucial conversations that Erie needs. And Erie County went through a big election along with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And for post-election analysis, we like to go to the political consultant and the guy with all the hot takes, Jezree Friend. Good to see you, Jezree. Thanks so much for joining us again.
Yeah, I'm just glad to be here. And
I was going to say, yes.
Personally, just through some things, I broke my back. I don't recommend it, but now I'm back at it. That's a great dad pun. And on a beautiful Erie afternoon, post-election, riding all the highs of staying up till 12:30, pouring over every number, because that's what political junkies like me do. I get a rush still. A lot to go over. A lot of consistencies across the board, across the state is actually, no doubt. Some huge consistencies. Have a good night if you are of the Democratic persuasion. You're probably very excited. I want to start with a quote that I saw this morning. If anyone knows Jim Berlin, shout out to him.
Oh,
I don't know
Jim,
if he's listening,
sure,
from Logistics Plus, great guy. But he has a daily quote he pushes out every morning. And he said, half the country's pretty upset, half the country is just thrilled. So, typical Wednesday.
That's true. That's true. All right. Can we start macro and then we'll go to micro?
Let's go.
What do you think?
Let's go.
All right. So here's my hot take. Before I let you get any hot takes in, I'll do my hot take.
Let's hear it.
I think this is all about Trump.
Yeah.
I think this is a referendum on the occupant of the White House. And I know it sounds ridiculous to think that a county race or even a township race would be impacted by the White House occupant. But I think the motivation to come out and vote in a municipal off-year election is what fueled, that anger against how how Trump conducts his business, and the anger against it really motivated the Democrats. Is that all wrong?
No, you're not all wrong. I think it's a little redundant to make it exclusive to just that. I think there's more than that. I think
it's more than that, but
I think also,
but it might be the initial push.
I would say the pendulum swing that exists is still unbeaten. So what I mean by that is, right, the party who usually wins the last time rarely does as well the next time. So this is consistent, right? It always goes this way. So it is to be expected. They're going to be talking about this midterms. Oh, the party of the president's not going to do as well in the midterms every single time. Whether it was Obama, Bush, Clinton, this always happened, right?
Yeah, Obama coined the phrase of a shellacking.
Yeah.
Because he lost 40 seats in his midterm first time around, right? 40 congressional.
Something like that, yeah. So these things are expected. It is noted. It was more than expected. To your point, I was listening to you while I was driving in. Some of those that might be of the party of Trump felt, hey, if that's our guy, we're good, and less motivated. I will say, starting at the higher level from a statewide, and even as Erie County, because I'm a strong believer in all those people that come in to say that we are important and we are special and we are the bellwether, keep ringing that bell. Yeah, we are. Come talk to us. We do matter. Is voter registration. We saw a big shift in voter registration, specifically for the first time in the last few years. The Democrats have just cleaned the clocks of the Republicans for years. Republicans have been terrible at these efforts.
Right.
They've realized that post I'd say Joe Biden's election, really, and have doubled down on that to the point where they have, in statewide, narrowed the gap by a couple, like 400,000 registration. Locally, the big number. I remember when I was really getting into this stuff in Erie, when we were really looking at it, we were probably at like the voter registration disadvantage about 15-ish years ago was, I think, 28,000, right?
In Erie County.
Was the discrepancy between R&D. Yeah. That doesn't include how many ayes, independents. But that was how many it was. And then it kept kind of going down. And I remember midterms in 2018, it was 21,000, because I remember talking to Jim Wirt specifically about that. So 21,018. We're down to 5,500 in Erie County.
Unreal.
So that's a big switch in not that many years. And really, I see, 6 years, something. whatever.
So for somebody to go and, have a fresh registration, let's say, since either before 2024 or after 2024, but then just kind of sit it out. And certainly the independents all swung blue,
And I think that's kind of, you would expect to some degree.
That's the pendulum point.
Yeah, and a lot, and to note, yes, the gap between R's and D's in Erie County and statewide has narrowed drastically, which now on paper puts some of these countywide races a little bit more competitive and in play. However, the independents have grown. Yeah. So it's not so much that the gap has narrowed because everyone's jumping ship from their Democratic registration. They want to be a registered Republican. What I'm seeing, what that tells me actually as I'm reading the tea leaves, is there's a lot of people who were of a more left of center persuasion do not buy what the Democrat Party is peddling as their platform or as their identity, or maybe what they're allowing the loudest voices in the room to be saying is their identity, and they don't have the leadership to push back. But they will still vote left of center.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So they identify with I because they don't identify with fill in the blank, whatever thing they don't want to agree with. That's their prerogative. But now they're seeing, at least in this election, they were still voting left of center. So does that number down to 5,500 from 21,000 a few years ago, is it as reflective, or is it more just kind of a personal thing?
Right.
To be determined still as we're pouring over those things. But, again, we see the Trump and Biden elections go from 1,100 votes one way or the other. And we saw gaps from countywide races yesterday ranging from 8,000 votes between R to D at its closest margin, which was the Jeremy Leitner-Murski race.
Murski race, yeah.
It was actually the most competitive locally, I guess, if you want to say that. So you saw the county executive race, same subset of humans, right? Where she won by 18,000. So she actually had 10,000 more votes than Murski did. From those two offices, from the same subset of people. That tells a different story of campaigns. We can get that in a minute. But
one more thing on that. If Jeremy, Jeremy Leitner, I think he identifies as a Democrat.
He's a registered Democrat.
A registered Democrat. Yeah. But they cross-file in the spring, and so
all judicial candidates do that. Right. It's not unique. Yeah.
So my question is, if he would have had that D next to his name, like Emily Murski had next to his name, would that make any impact, on the vote total? Or was this just a full-on, if it's D, it's for me kind of thing?
That's what the numbers kind of tell you.
It was all D.
And here's my example, Joel. Here's a great example. So let's staying a little bit macro, outside our backyard into other parts of the state.
Yes.
What happened in Erie was reflective, being the bellwether, but being reflective of other subsets around the county. And a friend of mine who looks at these things all over, he sent me some few interesting tidbits. I'm just going to pull up my note here real quick. Obviously, we looked at, there was a big, I guess from a statewide too, was the big referendum, yes, no, on Supreme Court.
I wanted to ask you about that. Everybody thought no was going to somehow win. There's no way.
It's too confusing. Even people in the weeds like myself, I'm like, okay, which one to get? My family texted me, hey, which one am I supposed to say no, and which one? People get confused. And not everyone
and poor
has
Judge Meade and Judge Walsh got thrown in on that.
And correct, because then it's like, vote yes or no, whatever one you want, right, on these statewides. But then, remember these come and please are actually the local dudes who,
that we kind of like.
They're probably fine. Let them back in there.
Let them back in.
There's no ideological whatever thing that's being affected here.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see Republican even counties statewide losing. And because it's so consistent across the board, that's kind of what we look at here. I want to show, I have a few things here. One was Dauphin County. So that's like the Harrisburg area, right?
Yeah.
There was 2 open judge races there. The GOP nominees were well-known. The district attorney had been there, and recorder of deeds. Both of them had won countywide before, had a large name ID. The Democrats ran a perennial candidate and a newcomer who had never run before, both female. The Republican side, who were the district attorney and recorder of deeds with the name ID, spent $200,000, right? The one candidate who was the perennial had spent $3,000.
Oh,
Had never ran before, and the Democrat won. 3,000
unreal.
to 200,000 with no name ID. So you could say, wow, that person should be writing a book and starting their own consultancy immediately on how to win elections because they found the secret sauce. Or the easier answer is the D was next to the name and that's all that it mattered. And so, I don't know, it's kind of crazy. You feel bad for someone who campaigned probably so hard and fundraised and did all the stuff, and someone who obviously did not put much of an effort. I mean, $3,000 isn't much money in terms of campaign fundraising. Locally, I think almost everyone that was countywide raised and spent over $100,000. So that's not uncommon.
This RD thing was the opposite in 2024. Basically, you know, when you look at that big race, and again, a lot of turnout, but it seemed like, you know, what was it? The statewide R's all won last year.
Yeah, 5.
5 of them.
With the exception of 1. 4 of the 5 won. And this is really telling into the future as we kind of keep this as a little bit on a macro level, right? I'm going to get too ahead of myself, but everyone who's looking at the midterms next year is going deep dives this week right now, right? Mm-hmm. We are going to have governor race next year.
You sure are.
Going to be big. And there was a lot of optimism, you know, for Stacey Garrity, the current sitting state treasurer. She got a very early endorsement from the PA GOP. She got more votes than the sitting governor while they ran at the same time. And so people are thinking, whoa, this is someone, and she's got a really great resume. Colonel, ran military camps in Iraq, youngest, first female vice president of a global company. Like, she's been in many countries doing giant business deals. Like, she is very squared away human. I've met her. She's extremely impressive. Mm-hmm. But now, you know, I imagine they're looking at strategy and how they're going to move forward. And if I were Governor Shapiro running for re-election, but we all know he's immediately going to be jumping in the presidential race. Right. It's no secret. Maybe he doesn't have to put as much effort as he maybe thought he did to maintain his relevancy to taking that next step. When you saw, let's see, what was it? It was a 61% of the vote on the statewide.
Right.
For that kind of yes/no. 61%. That's big. That's not like a margin of error. Like, oh, if I would have done this differently. And that's the other thing. I
mean, would have normally, you know, if it was a home retention, wouldn't it be in the 80s? I mean,
yeah. Yes, they made some efforts.
So there was, you know, that those millions that were spent did make a dent.
Oh, for sure. 100% it did. Yeah.
But
the reality is the turnout that was happening, right. or the lack of there from the Republicans' persuasion. Does that turn back out? I don't know. So
it almost felt like that. Typically in a off year election, you almost think that the GOP is going to be more enthusiastic, you know, getting more vote out there because they tend to be older. You know, I'm looking demographically. That didn't work out. It was like if we go to New York City, it was young people who voted for Mandami. You know, I mean, you know, it's like he got 80% of the under 35 vote or something crazy like that, you know. I mean, it's just yesterday they activated their base, the D's. The
I would
Dems.
say it wasn't yesterday. It was their kudos for their process leading up to it.
There you go.
Right? Yep. It's elections aren't won and lost in a day. It's the election cycle. It's the campaign leading up to it, you know.
Well, even Christina Vogel said, she said, I have a target on the mail-ins, and she outdid her target.
Yeah, and that's telling. And kudos to the Republican Party, or I'm sorry,
the
Democrat Party, excuse me, on really working that mail-in vote. Out the gate, most candidates had, I think, from the D to R, as soon as that mail drop came in, it was like 15,000 to about 3.
Yes.
38. Yeah. The exception, again, was Jeremy Leitner's race, where Mirsky had 13 on the drop, and Jeremy Leitner had about 5,500. So he showed he was able to make pretty substantial, in that sense, improvements over, you know, generic ballot candidate R. Again, not being an R, really, most people don't know that. But he had also could play into his subset that he had, going into that, and people who knew who he was, that sort of thing. But the mail-in ballot was big, and you have to work that going into it. You have to plan it, and they do. There is more Ds than Rs, and they're more used to doing that, and so that's still a battle that the Rs are trying to have to overcome after I'll be honest, the damage that was happened in the first Trump administration when he was like, "Don't do it. It's all whatever." Yeah. So they're like, "Oh, well, we'll never do it," and like, "Oh, I think I talked on your show about this a couple years ago." When I was saying like such a stupid thing to say. It's like going, I love basketball. I love basketball analogies. I coach elementary basketball, so I'm a big deal, right? I know basketball, elementary basketball. But here's the thing. It's like saying they put the 3-point line in. You're like, I hate that 3-point line. We don't do that, so I'm not going to use it. Cool. Watch Steph Curry. He's going to change the game.
You're playing with one arm behind your back. Jezree Friend is with us here. We're going to take a quick break. It's Talk Erie. We're doing post-election analysis here on Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Alrighty, Jezree Friend is with us here. He's a political consultant, and let's get a little empathy going here. Jezree, you've had candidates that have lost. As the consultant, what do you tell them? Like, how do you encourage them? Coming off of anybody who throws their hat in the ring, they get my respect.
100%. It's so admirable. Such a hard thing to do, right? And for anyone out there listening, thinking, I might get involved or I want to get involved, I encourage you to see how it's run first. There's so much you don't know. Talk to people who do know and get some of that wisdom, and get a consultant and people who've done this 1,000 times. But the other thing is not enough credit goes to their family and their support system.
There you go.
And shout out to them. So for everybody that might be listening or know someone, or maybe you volunteered or helped someone on a campaign, or your family member did and you were there picking up the slack, they give, whether they won or lost, majority, if not all of them, they put so much of their own time, their own money, their own efforts, pretty much gave up this last year of their life. They probably didn't take a vacation because they're out there trying to go to every parade and the Cherry Fest and the Dan Rice Days and just every little festival all over town, right? And they think like, wow, that's such a big lift, but also their family's left picking up the pieces and doing a life without them sometimes. And that's hard. So shout out to all the spouses out there and family members and children of people who ran that don't get enough, like, hey, you did a good job too, because they did. Yeah. That's part of it, right? I would also say, try to look at the positive stuff on the work that they put in, try to find the silver lining on things, show where we made a plan to address things and it came out and it worked. And you could see that in a few different things. And that's why you do see some variation, that the numbers weren't straight up and down across the board. But the D to R, like I said, there was some variation in the county executive race. There was some variation in the judge race. There was some variation in the Mill Creek race between the vote on changing up how their system of government's going to be, between who's going to be the next commissioner.
Well, let's talk about that
Yeah.
a second there, because, this was supposed to be a nonpartisan approach, the Mill Creek Township Government Study Commission. And I still am kind of dumbfounded whether a yes meant that you were more conservative or a yes meant you were more D, more blue. And, yes won.
Correct.
But Kylie Morris won.
Right.
Which,
And then when
on
you
a
see
very effective campaign by Harry Morgan that fell still close to 10 points short,
That surprised me a little bit, to be honest.
Oh, no doubt.
Well, it surprised me in one sense, but then when you see everything that came out on the back end, okay, that makes sense. Because when you saw with Harry Morgan was a very impressive campaign, to his credit. If anyone that helped out Harry Morgan out in Mill Creek, I saw you. I didn't help out at all. But I saw the activity. I recently moved from Mill Creek. I was in Mill Creek for 11 years, and my wife and I moved recently. Took my kids too, by the way, out in Lake City. So
that's good.
I wasn't as involved in any Mill Creek election, anything this year, like maybe I would have been. But what I was saying was, I still live in this area and drive every day, and I see a lot of signs. I talked to a lot of people who had said, oh yeah, Harry's crew came to my door. That guy got after it. And then conversely, no, I'm not in Mill Creek, but I didn't know who he was running against.
Right.
Because I didn't see her out there. Now, I'm sure she did efforts. I'm sure she had a great campaign, but the outward person who didn't, wouldn't have been receiving mail and things like that, or getting targeted geo ads on my phone, I didn't see a lot. So I was a little surprised that they did as well.
But again, if there was motivating factor for Dems to come out in Mill Creek, right? If they were motivated even by Trump,
sure,
or by the commission, and then they circled that D.
But to your question of the ambiguity of the referendum thing, is this new style of government, is it an R thing or a D thing? And I was like, I don't know. Like, why are we messing with it at all? You would think actually the conservative side has generally been a more traditional approach to leave it alone.
Don't change things.
Right, sure. That's like a stereotype. But the people I saw that were celebrating online and on the news, I saw running for conservative offices in the past.
Right.
So I was like, oh, so that's interesting. Just maybe people didn't know what they were voting on. But Mill Creek's going to have a new system of government soon, I guess, right?
Yeah. It looks like this is what it's going to be, which will make it interesting for Kylie Morris. As to, I guess she'll have 2 years as a traditional
and then it's
supervisor.
Switch.
Then it'll switch.
It's a short-term thing. And kind of the last thing I'll say on that, because I'm not in the weeds as much in the Mill Creek thing, but just from an observer, on voter participation, how much it matters and that sort of thing. There was how many people voted in Mill Creek yesterday? I'll have to look it up, but probably less than 20,000. And there is way more than 20,000 people who live in Mill Creek. Right. Your style of government has now drastically changed, that has been established for decades and decades and decades, is now completely different based on not even those who voted, just the majority of those who voted.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Right? So
sure.
9,000 people or something maybe just decided all that. That's a crazy, when you break it down like, oh, my vote doesn't count. No, your vote counted a considerable amount.
Yeah, basically,
or the lack thereof.
Honestly, even in the primary, we said, look at how few people turned, gave the mayoralty race to Daria Devlin. It was like 10,000 people.
Yeah,
on the Democratic side,
for the mayor. That's a big deal, being the mayor. There's a lot of responsibility in that, and. Now, I mean, we kind of knew just because of the makeup of the city where things were going to probably end up falling here. But to your point noted, I think it's interesting too. Just here's kind of
total vote for yes, no.
Hit me.
17,745.
There it is, less than 20.
Less than 20.
I was right. But I'm also kind of upset that I was right because
there's 50,000
the purist
citizens, probably 30,000 voters
would like to see that better. But then, it's interesting. I had this professor in college, and he is brilliant guy. Dr. Genlin. You should talk to him sometime.
Yeah.
But he said a thing that caught me off guard. He goes, we're saying we should increase voter participation. Everyone should vote. He goes, I don't think everyone should vote. And I'm like, what are you saying? And he goes,
counterintuitive.
Only the educated voter should be, and I don't want to misquote him, but it was something to the effect of Only those who
High
know what
information
they're
voters,
voting
yeah.
for should vote. He goes, too many people vote without really knowing what they're doing or whatever. And you might think like, oh, that's not true. But then I'm thinking like, how many people on election day text me, hey, who am I supposed to be voting for?
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, hey, here's the people I recommend. And they're just taking my word for it because they trust me. And I appreciate that. Please continue to do that. But there's a lot of people like me who people have those folks to go to.
We got to go to news. It's post-election analysis here on Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio. And Jezree Friend is with us. He's a political consultant and very well regarded throughout the Commonwealth. Alrighty, Jezree, we mentioned the county executive race. We mentioned the Mill Creek race here and also the study commission. Let's talk about the city. And, my benchmark for a competitive race in a city, I guess, will always be until we see somebody as strong as that 2017 Schember versus Persinger race, which you were, campaign manager, right?
The glory days.
and John Persinger got within 6 points.
Oh, it was less than that, wasn't it?
I thought it was around 3 on either side.
I tell you what,
right?
And that was the last year.
Like a 53 to 47.
As you're forcing me to dig up old wounds.
Yeah.
That was the last year they had straight party ticket voting.
Right.
And what's interesting is I know I'm not digging this too much, but when you looked at some of the turnout and even just like some stuff we were talking to folks, there was so many people who thought John was a Democrat. And I voted for John. All the Democrats. Yep, I did it. Every time I vote straight ticket, I'm like, he was actually registered on the Republican side or on the Republican
I wonder
ballot.
if that was one of the.
And so I wonder how much we think.
Well, that Act 77 got rid of that, which I'm not sure.
The next year.
I'm not sure that benefits the R's or benefits the D's or not. But my point is that. Persinger, with all the wherewithal, with the personality, with the amazing campaign manager, he got within 6 points.
Yeah.
What would it take? We haven't had a Democratic mayor, or a Republican mayor since the 60s. We haven't had an elected Republican council person since Denise Robinson, I think, in the 90s. I mean, we're talking we're getting on 30 years here. Is it just impossible? And I'm gonna say that the folks that ran as a slate on the Republican side, they had lots of enthusiasm but zero money.
Yeah.
And what do you need? You need money, don't you?
You have to. It's a necessary evil if you want to say that. But things in life cost money. Good quality things cost more money, right?
I think Matthew Thomas was quoted in the newspaper being under $1,000 spent on the. Maybe he spent like $700 for some yard signs.
Then you question, the seriousness of your candidacy if you're not willing to do that, right? Like, you have to get your message out. How are you going to do that? You can't go and talk to the 90,000 people that are left in the city individually and convince them all with every conversation. You have to get mail. You have to get digital. You have to go on TV. It's just the way that it is. How do you do that? You have to pay for it. How do you pay for it? You raise money.
What about the Republican establishment? Is there need to be a new GOP for Erie County to advance to some of the goals? I'm just asking. And you don't have to answer. But I'm just saying, when you get shellacked like this, everything should be on the table.
Yeah, I agree. Leadership plays a large role in this. Good leaders lead, right? Other people don't. Good leaders take accountability of their actions, find the problems, and try to solve them. You solve them, one, by, in this case, increasing voter registration. They have done that, so to some of their credit. I mean,
right.
We just said that, actually, of how much it's changed. So I don't think it's all on them on that. But when we're reducing it to the city, we do have a demographic problem in voter registration. John Persinger's race, when that started, he was 3-1, not 2-1, 3-1.
3-1 registration.
Registration disadvantaged.
Yeah.
It was 75. It was a 50-point. You mentioned he was a 6-point loss. 50 points he started behind. He had to make up 50 points. He made up 44 of them or whatever it was. Probably more than that.
Wow.
So that's a huge feat. So what's it going to take for someone else? It's interesting at places like Pittsburgh, they have, at least at the county level, they have like an at-large. So you at least have at least someone with a different, perspective on things. Mm-hmm. I think that's healthy, regardless if it's, and even.
But is it to the point where anybody that has a D next to their name
yes.
Can win city council?
100%. We've seen it happen. We see that. We also see that in county council districts, and really any districts that favor a voter registration significantly, right?
You almost, even if you are center right, you run.
Pat
D.
You got state rep spots. Pat Harkin's seat will always be a D seat. Whoever gets that. Bob Mursky's seat will likely always be a D. Take a really big lift for an R to do that there, but it's not impossible, but a huge lift. Same reason why Jake Bantassi out in the county, that's always going to be an R. It's just the way that it is. So as I say that, it's just the way the city is. Now, I know there's some people that still have hope and we've had conversations about recruiting, that's just, we got to recruit these better candidates, and we've, have these conversations with them and try to get their message out there. But it's just so hard.
Well, again,
because
I'm not
them.
sure that anyone that would have an amazing resume, like John Persinger had the resume,
right? And so what happens is you get people who are worth their salt, who would be amazing candidates at every level. By the way, this happens, and this is part of the problem. As I almost soapbox here, right? Is you talk to these people, hey, you would be really good at this. You're passionate. You know what you're doing. You're qualified. Maybe you have a base where fundraising wouldn't be as difficult because you have a bit of a network, and you have this really good thing going for you, and that's why you would be a good candidate because you have a good resume. And what happens is I go, yeah, I do have a good resume. I worked hard to get here. I'm not sacrificing this to put myself up to the circus or the show. And so what happens is the power vacuum. And now you have B-tiered candidates running for offices. And this happens on both sides, by the way. And what happens, sometimes those B-tiered candidates win. And now those B-tiered candidates run our government. And that's, I believe, on my personal anecdotal soapbox, some of the problems that we have is we have less than qualified people running things because in my experience, for different positions in my previous position on the Republican state GOP at one point, I was an elected member to that, was to try to recruit strong candidates. And I would talk to folks. We would go to lunch. We'd have conversation. Hey, we're really flattered. Appreciate all the support you want to put behind me. No. Good luck. Give you a few bucks for the next person that does go, but not me.
It's not going to be me. Let's analyze the city one more, for a little bit longer.
Sure.
So, where does Daria Devlin have to govern as mayor? Because I have this theory that we still have a significant number, and I call them Tulio Democrats, but nobody knows who Tulio is anymore, versus AOC Democrats, and we certainly have a lot of them on council. But am I off on that? Do we still have that dichotomy of kind of the
it's there,
the
but
center left,
it's
and
shifting
then the left.
other way, right? It does seem to be shifting the other way. Look no further than like a Rock Copeland candidacy, right?
Right.
In the city, and he ran on very progressive things, outspoken about it, and this is the kind of thing, and he won on it. And then there's other more progressive fronts that kind of came out to the front and people voted for that. Now, it's also interesting in Erie is I've tons of people. I was with a lot of Democrats last night, and I had a pile of them saying, oh, I used to be a Republican, but I just registered Democrat because I want to actually vote in the primaries and have a say and da-da-da. There's a lot of people. That's very common. So maybe those numbers aren't reflective of the true change. But to your point also, I think why Erie is such an interesting microcosm of the state and the world is, by and large, more than not, I still think, is Democrats in Erie aren't the same as Democrats of San Francisco, right? Or DC, right? Working class people, union card members. There's a large Catholic influence in Erie, no doubt, right? That's very common. I think we still have a large faith-based community, whether you're Protestant or Catholic, and so that plays. So when you talk about AOC versus Tulio Democrat, right, what you're really saying is, are these strong center-left social issues being driving factors, or is it more the policy side? And it was that way, but it's shifting the other way. So now you're asking me, where does Daria Devlin have to govern?
Right.
I think there's a bit of desire for more amongst people. I think the evidence of that is her winning a 2-term incumbent Mayor Schember, who's well-liked. He's a nice guy. That's literally
no
kind
scandals,
of his thing.
Nothing.
Yeah. He's not going to stir the pot, but I think people are looking for stronger leadership. I think they were looking for someone who was willing to make a difference and do something new than just kind of maybe they view it as skate by. Daria seemed to be very vocal that she was that person. Yeah. Now she's just going to have to prove it. It seems.
It sounds like she'll have to make strong ties to the business community, which generally will temper, your left leanings, I would think.
Yeah, and that's what it has to be. And I think we have to have the conversation, Joel, and everyone listening, listen, stop over it's not sexy. Can I say that? Like, it's not actually this great clickbait, look at me on social media thing. Like, I'm glad people are getting more involved and there's a spotlight on these things. The reality of what government should be. Here's an example. To Brent Davis's credit for county executive, he ran a clinic, to his credit, that I don't think he got enough credit for. He gets bashed over things that, whatever. But when we had that big snow, right, last year, and then the one a couple years before that, he was running emergency services, had that whole czar thing. He was good on communication, talking with the news, putting information out all the time.
I mean, he's working with the Democrat Mike Carroll, the head of PennDOT.
Yeah.
At the central
to do
operations
services like road clearing, right, for people. That's what government work is really about.
Right.
Government work isn't really about all this extra, I don't know, pet project policy things that we want to make anything. That's not the reality of it. The reality of it, the person who's going to have effect is, who's that person that can go get people in the room and say, we're going to move some snow so people can get to work, because this is the area we don't cancel things and we're tough.
So okay, stay with the snowfall for a second there. Unfortunately, the mayor, fortunately or unfortunately, the mayor allowed his experts to be in front of the media. Sure. He let his head of public works do the talking for him. But that's not how former mayors would have handled that. I mean, they would have used that bully pulpit approach, right? Was that detrimental? And you think Daria will turn the corner and be more of that?
For sure.
That kind of that bully pulpit.
I don't want to say it's detrimental to Schember. I think that's just his style, and there's different levels of leadership. I mean, you can be, I read a great book on quiet leadership from. Oh my gosh! I can't think of it. The former coach of the Colts, and he's on.
Football
Night in America.
Yeah.
Anyway, he wasn't a loud yelling guy that had to be the biggest voice in the room.
But everybody loved him.
Respected him. He put winning championship teams together.
Peyton Manning followed every word he had to say. Yeah.
You can be like that if everyone knows you're setting the tone of the culture, and then you're empowering your people to do those things. There is a difference, though, than letting people be your voice, as you mentioned, and kind of maybe running the table. I do think it helps to have one clear direction. This is, that's biblical. My people perish with a lack of vision. You know what I mean? If you have a vision and everyone's rowing in the same boat and saying, hey, here's a direction coming from the top. Daria Devlin's now going to be the top. What's the direction? What is going to be her priorities? It seems like she talked a lot about the Bayfront. It seems she talked a lot about development. There's been a lot, as we know, we're sitting in development right now. There's been a lot of development going thanks to works of the EDDC and a lot of community partners, to be fair, who've all piled in and joined on these efforts. I think that's going to have to continue. I think there was some expectation from the business community to have a stronger voice for that from the mayor's office, and they didn't see that. I believe Daria Devlin will do that. I think you said how is she going to do it? I think she's going to have to keep doing that. It's not all about going to the, it's good to be seen and going to all the community things, but you have to have some initiatives that you can fall back to and point to and say, hey, we did this. It's got to be quantifiable, right?
Yeah.
That you can go, quantifiable, like a Senator Laughlin when he ran. I always go back to this. I told this one, I'm like, dude, when you were running, this is what you should have done. He ran on getting more money for Erie Public Schools.
Yep.
First year, all he did, he was laser focused, got reoccurring money from public schools, and then went on this next pet project and got the Chris. And I mean, the guy's had some accomplishments he can point to.
Tony Dungy's the
Tony Dungy. Oh, thank you. I was thinking Tony Blair, and I'm like, no, that's England. Wrong guy.
I've got less than 5 minutes with Jezree Friend, and I've got a. Was there a race last night as you were staying up till 12:30 that surprised you? Or was it kind of once you saw that it was a blue
the county executive race locally surprised me way more.
We thought it was going to be a lot tighter.
I thought that one would have been the closest. Personally, I thought Brent Davis was going to win re-election, so I was very, very wrong that he lost by 18,000 votes. That's huge. And
we're chopping that up to just he has an R or. Well,
it looks like
or the quote chaos.
So it's
function.
more than that, right? So the generic kind of going on that was about 10,000 or so, gives you straight party whatever. So 8,000 more was either he lost or she earned.
There were 75,814 votes, and again it was 47-3 to 28-5. was vocal to Davis.
So we know 10,000 of them seems to be demographic politics. So that means the remainder she either earned or he lost. To be determined. It's probably a mix. I don't know if it's in the middle, but there's probably some to be shared there. Some people didn't like Brent Davis's personality. I will say I was surprised. I'm always surprised. He said exactly what he was going to do, and people were surprised that he did what he said he was going to do. In the sense, he goes, "No, I'm going to ... And people are like, "Oh, he's doing these things." He's like, "Well, he said he was going to do that." Whether you like that or not is up to you, but it wasn't anything new.
Mm. So that one was a surprise.
Yeah, I'd say the county executive one, the gap between it was pretty surprising. Usually incumbents do generally fare better. But there is a voter disadvantage between D to R, and then obviously we had the national groundswell behind it. So a lot of things that contributed, but clearly there was he left some stuff on the table from a campaign perspective.
Some of the candidates were telling me that when they were door knocking, that people were just exhausted. That basically Trump had taken all the oxygen out of the room. Yeah. Does that make
Yeah, I hate this whole. I as a guy who listened to talk political radio as a kid, like every 15-year-old boy does. Now the fact that like everyone's so consumed, right? And now everyone's so consumed. And listen, here's my parting shot advice, guys. Don't let this be your identity. Guys, go to work, be your neighbors with people. Like, stop identifying with who you voted with last election. There's more to life than that. And that's what's drawing these people. This is what's creating apathy in our political process and our civil discourse. Stop disassociating yourself with someone because you disagree with them politically. To me, and I'm sorry if this hits you the wrong way, I think that's a weak-minded person that does that. Expand your influence, expand your friend groups, and don't let your identity be involved in just who you voted for. There's so much more to life than that.
Or who you didn't vote for. I'm sorry, the Trump derangement or the Obama derangement. I mean, there's still people carrying Obama derangement, I think.
Probably. But you can't scroll through social media without someone upset and yelling. And I've had people very close to me telling me how much this stuff has affected them because they watch the news every day and they're depressed.
That's horrible.
And I'm
it's a horrible way to
you're
live.
Not taking my joy. I refuse to allow you to have that control and power over me. I'm going to go outside and play in the leaves with my kids. Like, do something. Get a hobby. I don't know. And this is my hobby. Right. And I'm still not letting it control me. So that's my advice to you. Like, don't let it control you, guys.
Last 30 seconds with Jezree Friend. 2026. Yeah. We don't have a Senate seat in PA. Does it make it a boring off year for us?
No, they got the governor race.
You think it's going to be a hot one?
In pockets across the state, there's some very contentious congressional races coming up. I did see Mike Kelly put out a tweet, an X or whatever it is now, that he is running again.
He's definitely running.
Indifferent.
Will the Dems seat. Bring up somebody strong, you think?
I don't know. Honestly, I think the last chance at that seat for Democrats was the Ron DeSantis race. It was very competitive. DeSantis' team ran an amazing campaign.
He left Erie County with a lot of vote, but
he crushed it. And if the Democrats couldn't take that seat with Ron DeSantis, I don't see it ever changing at this point for that one. But for looking at it next year, I think the governor's race was going to have a lot of pull. A lot of money is going to be spent on that because there's the national implications. Yeah. We're going to see a lot more national influence because of the folks looking to maybe prevent a Josh Shapiro from boosting his national image.
So they'll go after Josh for presidency by crushing him, beating him up in the governor's race.
Yeah, take his legs out before he gets to that point potentially. I mean, you could even see his Democrat competitors, if you will, have an influence wanting to, if they see him as a threat, someone like a Gavin Newsom or something like that, having an interest in him not doing well because that means it's less competition for them down the road. It's politics. You might not like it. You might not like the 3-point line, but it exists and you have to use it.
Jezree Friend, political consultant, with his hot takes here the day after the election. Thank you, Friend.
Appreciate you, Joel.
You got
Thanks,
it.
Shani.